Welcome to the Company of Dads podcast, where we explore the sweet, silly, strange, and sublime aspects of being a lead dad in a world where men who are the go-to parent aren't always accepted at work, among their friends, or in the community for what they're doing. I'm your host, Paul Sullivan. Our podcast is just one of the many things we produce each week at the Company of Dads. We have various features, including the Lead Dad of the Week. We have our community, both online and in person. We even have a new resource library for all fathers. The one-stop shop to keep up to date on all of this is our newsletter, The Dad. So sign up today at thecompanyofdads.com/thedad. That's thecompanyofdads.com/thedad. Today, my guest is Rocco Carreiro, a financial advisor and author of The Three Chords Approach to Life and Wealth Management for Business Owners. The chords are work, family, and self. And we're going to unpack those today as they relate to men who are lead dads. How do you give your all to your business, to your family, to yourself? Is it even possible? What are the trade-offs? How hard is it? Lots of questions to answer today. Rocco, welcome to the Company of Dads podcast.
Paul, thank you so much for having me.
What gave you the idea for the book?
You know, I've been working with hard charging people for about 25 years, and I thought about writing the book really as a kind of like a resource guide for people in business that could really help them discover true wealth, right? True wealth certainly isn't just the money. I mean, a lot of times people think that's the case, but true wealth is, this is through working with lots of people over all the years. I've probably done 16,000 meetings. True wealth is really when somebody has a great family life, has a successful business, and they are also in tune with themselves and are healthy and well, mentally, physically, on their own.
Yep. And, you know, when you think about, you said, 16,000 meetings, a lot of people you've worked with, for good or bad, often our best ideas come from somebody who's either done it so wrong that we want to make sure we don't do it that way, or somebody who's done it so right that we stand in awe of that person. Tell me some of the stories along either of those lines that help you formulate the three chords and really guide us through some of your findings in the book.
Yeah, absolutely. Love to do that. So basically, here were some of the findings. You'd work with people that, we work with all kinds of people. We typically like to work with people that are family people that married, kids, and care about their family, care about helping others. And I've got to see different people which throughout life may have made some major mistakes within their marriage, major mistakes with their relationships with their children, major mistakes within their business, and also major mistakes with not taking care of themselves, excessively drinking, using drugs, not in tune with themselves physically or mentally, and we all know people like that in our lives who suffer in those different areas. And the people that really pay attention to the three areas, not just one or two, but all three, are the ones that really do achieve true wealth over the long term. And so that's really what this is all about. Is it's about the three chords, and we wrote the book to try to help as many people as we possibly can understand that.
Okay, but yeah, don't do drugs, don't get fallen down drunk, don't cheat on your wife, don't be a crappy dad. But think about actionable steps when people are going to read this and what they're going to take away. When you think about, guidance that you've given people, I mean, I don't think, most people, they're called mistakes for a reason. They didn't intend to neglect their health. They made some other mistakes. How do you, in this book, in your practice, how do you help people not make the same mistakes that other clients have made, or other people in general have known to make? Do you give certain tips of okay, unpack it, family, business, self, certain key takeaways?
We do.
Yeah.
That's part of our proprietary process. So what we do is when we meet with the clients that we serve, we kind of lay out what's important to them from a family perspective. So a lot of times people, when you talk about money and family, you talk about wealth transfer. And sometimes it becomes, when the people are just focused on wealth transfer, what we try to do is we try to help them with understanding what is it that they can do now, because the kids aren't just going to remember. They're not going to remember the how much money they actually got. They're going to remember the experiences that they had with their parents. So we encourage people to not just wait until, to transfer their wealth to their heirs, but to do things with them, to create experiences, and that ties in with an important piece. And that's really on the family side. So as we're doing planning, we're saying, okay,
Yeah.
let's talk about your family. Let's kind of lay this out. What is it that you'd like to do now? What short term, long term, intermediate term? And we get it all on paper, and it's amazing. We've seen people go out west and rent ranches and do great trips like that because the family like to watch. I forgot the show that was on Netflix, the about the ranch,
Oh,
and so
Yellowstone.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yellowstone. And
Yeah.
so this was a great family, and they all watched the show together. And it
Yeah.
was somebody was celebrating his 60th birthday. I'm like, well, why don't you take the whole family out there? They're like, oh, that's really expensive. I'm like, well, you can afford it. Why don't you do it? And so they're doing it this month. I can't wait to see the pictures. Or people taking family trips to Europe, or going back to their ancestors and seeing where their ancestors came from in Scotland. So we encourage people to do that. That is part of the planning process. It's not just about rate of return and making more money. It's about, what's real return on capital. Real return on capital in is what you could actually do with it, right? It's besides just multiplying the money. It's the things that you can do with the people that are around you and the people that you care about.
Yeah. Do you ever get pushback? Because it's easy to say, okay, I've got a dollar, and how am I going to divide up that dollar versus, that's simple math and that type of. But if you're like, okay, how can I use that dollar in the most effective way to spend time with my family? That's a higher level of thinking of planning. Is it hard to get people over that hump and get them to spend that money on the experience as opposed
It,
to just yeah.
believe it or not, people that are a lot of self-made millionaires they don't ever look at themselves as being wealthy or being able to do such things. They just don't. And so we try to educate them and say, listen, even if you spend $50,000 on going out, taking your family out on going out to see the ranch out west, or going to Florida, taking the family to Disney, you're not going to run out of money. And so a lot of wealth creators are always nervous about that. So we do have to educate them. You would think that somebody that would see that had financial resources just would automatically do that, but some do, but the most don't. And they don't do that because they don't believe that they actually can. And so we encourage people to do it. We show that they can do it, and we show that there would be very little impact to their overall finances by making that type of investment in their family.
Yeah, you mentioned something there, which is a stat that I know well from my former life at the New York Times, and that's most millionaires, most wealthy people in America are self-made. They had an idea, they built a business, it worked. But in that we talk a lot at the Company of Dads on what does it mean to be a father? What does masculinity mean today? And in many cases, masculinity and money and the ability to earn are linked. And if you own your own business, or if you have a high paying job where you're, incentivized by the hours that you put in, there's a direct correlation between, how much you work and often how much you earn. But that of course has an impact on the family component and without proper communication, the dad may think that he is a great provider, or earning all kinds of money, but at the same time he's neglecting that family part, and a little bit less in the bank would make his family happier. What type of conversations do you have with the three chords approach around an issue like that?
Yeah, we again we work with all kinds of families, right? We work with dads that families that the mom is the primary
Yeah.
income provider into the household. And but most of the families that we work with, it's a team, right? Mom has her responsibilities, dad has their responsibilities within the household. The combination of both people works best when two people are working together on it, not just one. and it's a work in progress. And how the finances are treated are, in our planning process, we make sure that nobody feels that, well, I may not be working outside the home, but I'm doing the work inside the home. And, everybody's opinion is valued, and we take everybody's opinions and we put them on paper, and we work together at achieving everybody's goal. We don't just want one person coming into the office. We want both people coming to the office. We want to hear from both people. And that's the only way to really do it. Sometimes I think the perception is, okay, well, if the primary income earner should be doing the financial planning, and that's not the case. Financial
Yeah.
planning is more than just the numbers.
Whether the primary earner is mom or dad, we obviously at the company we talk about a lot about lead dads being in more of a support role to working moms, and lead dads having more flexible job, and maybe the working mom is a higher earner. But regardless, how do you the question I want you to answer is how do you get people to say, okay, there is incremental income that can be earned from me putting in X number of additional hours, but there's a detriment to that to my family. Do I want my family at the end of it all to remember, all the hours that I worked and on every place I traveled, or do I want them to remember, as you said, the trip out west to the ranch or the great trip to Disney World? How does that conversation come in when you are, a business owner, or you are the primary earner, and you feel that pressure to keep earning?
That's a great question, and I've asked lots of people this question, and I think the key is to know how much is enough. And there are people out there that don't know how much is enough, and if somebody keeps making more money than they actually need, and they're neglecting their personal time and their family time, they usually regret it. And I've had this conversation with lots of people that worked for an extra 5 or 10 years, and then they sold their company, and they said, I think pretty much 100% of the people have said that that once you got everything you need, any additional time in working is kind of like a waste of time. And there was a study, I think they did, there was this woman who was a hospice care nurse, and she
Yeah.
interviewed countless people that were on their deathbed.
Yep.
And they said, what were your regrets? And their regrets were usually didn't tell certain people that they loved them enough, that they worked too much at the office, and the third one was, I believe it was, and they didn't take enough risk in life to do the things that they really wanted to do. And so I think families can make that mistake by not understanding how much is enough and what they really actually need, because after a certain point, any additional dollars on top of a certain dollar amount really becomes it doesn't add any more leverage to the overall picture. It really doesn't. And I've seen that. That's what we try to encourage people to do, philanthropic things, and it's hard. It's really it's money's a funny thing.
It's a funny thing, and I know the book you're talking about, and at no point when that hospice nurse was talking to people in the last days of their lives did anybody say, I just wish I had seen one more PowerPoint presentation. Nobody ever says something like that. But let's say you get the balance correct between, the amount you're working, the amount of time you're spending with your family, and you're happy. It's, the something always feels like it has to give, and that, self-care is one of them. When we're in our 20s, we can, get away with, exercising now and again. But if we keep that up in our, 40s, 50s, 60s, it ultimately, catches up to us and, impacts the quality of time we'll have with our family. How do you get people, and with the 3 chords approach, how do you get people to find time or make time in their lives for that self-care?
It all comes down to, it's not going to sound too exciting, but model calendaring and pre-setting things in advance. People have a lot to do today, and the only way to get the things done that they need to get done is through a calendaring system. And so whether it's a weekly model calendar, whether it's a quarterly calendar, annual calendar, so let's just say that, taking care of themselves and going to check in with doctor's appointments and making sure that they get to the gym and do the things that they probably should be doing needs to go on the calendar. As you talk to most people, if something's on their calendar, there's usually a very high percentage chance that they're actually going to do it. And so, but if it's not on their calendar, there's a low chance that they're actually going to do it. And so, self things that are for ourselves, most people will tend to like kind of not focus on it as much. Most people that we talk with, if they have a family engagement that they need to be, go to, they're going to be there. But doing things for themselves usually is at the bottom of the list, and that usually is self-care. That's what most people, that's what we've seen. So the only way to do it is to preset it on the calendar and have a calendaring system that allows you to protect yourself from yourself with it.
Yeah, when I was growing up, it made me think I had this wonderful next door neighbor, really nice man, and he was a chain smoker, and he had a heart attack, massive heart attack, didn't stop smoking. Had a second heart attack, massive heart attack, didn't stop smoking, and then he had a third heart attack, and he stopped smoking because he died. So many people have to have that scary moment, either themselves or a close friend or relative, to really realize that they're not 20 anymore, that they're 50, 60, 70, and they need to care more. Do you have any advice in the three chords approach to get people to think more about the importance of self-care before it gets to that critical point?
Yeah, we talk about that in the book, and you want to kind of align yourself with really outstanding medical professionals before you need it. I see a cardiologist. I don't have any heart issues. I'd like to try to keep it that way. I try to make sure I'm doing the things that I need to be doing prior to actually needing it. So if you're seeing a cardiologist before you actually have a heart issue, you're not that this is the perfect solution here, but the odds of you having heart disease would probably be significantly less. Most people see a cardiologist after there's trouble. And it's the same thing with, try to align with a really good healthcare professional, general practitioner that you really like. Make yourself, put yourself in front of the people, make sure that they know you. A lot of times we look at doctors and medical professionals as being intimidating individuals, but make sure they know you, make sure that they know your vitals. There's a really cool tool out there called Inside Tracker, company out of Massachusetts, where they test your blood and gives you like an inner age score. So I'm going to be 50 in October. And first time I did it, it said my inner age was 52. I almost fell off the chair. I was like, what the heck? And so I followed what it said. I made sure to eat better, exercise better. And 4 months later, it said my inner age score was 46. And this is when I was 48 first time I did it. So now I just did it again. It says I'm 46. My goal is to try to get it to 38 and do the things that are required. So, it's time, it's money, but it's an investment in myself. And I would encourage everybody to align with the right medical professionals. Know your numbers.
Yeah. Plus something like that, keeps you from lying to yourself. You can't say, oh yeah, I feel great. Look at me. And then it tells you, and fortunately you did it early enough to catch it.
That's it's really important.
Yeah. I want to ask you,
my family, right? I got to be here. That's my goal.
Right. You're based in, Southampton, New York. One of the nicest summer retreats I know. I've been there many times. It's beautiful. It's for people listening around the country, it's the epicenter of the Hamptons. There's incredible wealth there, but there's, and also a whole, service sector, a whole working class out there. And I wouldn't say it's a melting pot exactly, a mixing pot, but it's definitely showing different ranges. How has that, informed what you have done, not just as a financial advisor, but as a father to your two kids? How is, that beautiful area that has people of all different wealth levels sort of, informed the way that you parent your two children?
Yeah, it's a great question because, here in the Hamptons, you see, kids meet families that have, big Gulfstream jets, and they also meet families that have really successful companies like school cleaning businesses, construction companies, plumbing companies. So we get to see the spectrum of all different types of people. And And so how it's impacted my kids, my parents immigrated from Italy. My dad was a tailor, so we love people that create things. And so, in fact, some of my most favorite clients that we're working with are wealth creators that operate trade related businesses. And some of my kids, they're the parents of their friends are in those, there's the spectrum of the families that have the big Gulfstream jets, but also the companies that are cutting the grass for all the big estates here. So, the Hamptons is a great place, and it's not just all rich people. I know a lot of times the perception is everybody here is really really wealthy, but you have a lot of different people here with all different backgrounds, and you do have a large community that does service the homes of the wealthy as well. But it's a great place to be.
One of my earliest parenting lessons was when my 14-year-old, who is now 14, who was then 3, came home from her friend's house, played at a friend's house, and a friend's house was bigger than our house. And the first thing she said was, "Oh my God, Daddy, why is their house so much bigger than ours?" And of course, there is this moment where, as an adult, you think of all of these other things, like, why is my kid already obsessed about money? Why is my kid thinking this? How do I answer this without saying this and this? And then when you step back, you realize, kids are these comparative creatures. She could have just as well gone on to somebody's house whose house was smaller than ours, and she would have come home and asked the same questions. Why is it small? And it really, fortunately, I paused and I was able to answer through about, the choices that people make, what we do. When you think about your own children and the discussions that you have with them about money and their financial future and, the world in which they're growing up in, which is, in Southampton, as you said, all types of different people doing all types of different jobs. What are some of the big lessons that you as a dad who also happens to be a financial advisor, but really you as a dad have imparted on your kids that you'd like to share with other dads out there?
I think it's being grateful for what you have, for sure. My son was playing basketball all day yesterday, and he was kind of sore, and he was gonna take a tub, and so he was getting himself situated. He said, "Oh, I was at so and so's house, and they have this digital climate control thing that sets the water perfect in the tub. We don't have that." And I said, "We don't have that." I said, "You should just be grateful that you have a tub here." I'm like, "That's what it's about." And he's like, "No, I'm not complaining." And so you do get that in the Hamptons, where you just hit the number 82 degrees and bam, like instant tub at that particular temperature. But I try to emphasize to the kids to be kind, to be respectful, to help others. We have designated values in our family, and there's 5. And we've gone over this with
What are the
kids.
5? I want to hear this. What are the 5 designated values?
First is family. Second is helping others. The third is respect. The fourth is generosity, and the fifth is personal growth. They have heard this. Before I would drop them off at school, I'd say, recite to me what are the family values, and I can tell you by talking about what the family. That's how we make decisions. We make decisions as a family based upon these 5 values. And so, if you don't like a decision, you just think back to the values, and all decisions are made based upon the 5 values.
All right. So tell me, what are the 5 again? Tell me what they are again.
Family.
Yeah.
Family, helping others, respect, generosity, and personal growth. So personal growth is that you got to produce in school. I want you to do well. I want you to do well at anything that you're doing. I want you to get better at it, right? So there's a personal growth aspect that we talk about in our household. That family, we have our immediate family, we have our extended family, and that's really important. That we want you to stay close to them. Here in the United States, and we have family in Italy. Respect. We're respectful of everybody. We're respectful of people in our home. We're respectful of people in our neighborhood. We're respectful of everybody at school, around us. And you are to treat other people the same way that you would expect to be treated. So respect, really important in our house. And then generosity. We like going above and beyond. So, somebody's given $25 for a birthday present. We'll give more, not because we're trying to show off or anything, but we just want to be generous. We want to be generous with our time. We want to be generous with what we have, and we want to invite people over for dinner. We want to share, and that's the way we operate our household as well, around generosity, and that's how we roll.
That's it, Rocco. I'm an only child, so I'm inviting myself over to your house for dinner.
I'm an only child too. I'm an only child too. I grew up with 21 first cousins, but I was only child, and so sometimes you think, okay, only children might be.
I think we overcorrect. I think only children who are self-aware overcorrect. Is like, I don't want to be the only child. I don't want to be the the stereotype.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. But those are the 5 rules in our house. And I said the only time you're going to see me get upset is if we're going against our values, and they know where we stand, between myself and my wife, and on how we're running the show there.
Rocco, this has been great. Thank you very much for being my guest on the Company of Dads podcast today. Before we go, just tell the listeners, how do they find you, and how do they get a copy of the 3 Chords approach?
All right. So basically, they can go to our website, which is roccoacarreiro.com. That's ROCCOACARRIERO.com. And they can read more about us, and as well as get a copy of the book that's on the website too.
Perfect. Thank you again, Rocco. I've thoroughly enjoyed this.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you for listening to the Company of Dads podcast. I also want to thank the people who make this podcast and everything else that we do with the Company of Dads possible. Helder Mira, who is our audio producer. Lindsay Decker, who handles all of our social media. Terry Brennan, who's helping us with the newsletter and audience acquisition. Emily Servin, who is our web maestro. And of course, Evan Roosevelt, who is working side by side with me in many of the things that we do here at the Company of Dads. It's a great team, and we're just trying to bring you the best in fatherhood. Remember, the one-stop shop for everything is our newsletter, The Dad. Sign up at thecompanyofdads.com/thedad. Thank you again for listening.